So, Charlie, how would you describe the genre of spontaneous? Would you say it's more of a thriller or like a love story? Where would you put it?
I mean, I guess I would say it's a love story, not even in the necessarily the Dylan and Mara relationship alone, but I think what really connects all the characters is love. I mean, like you and your parents, and you and Tess, who's played by Haley Law, and I mean, really, most of the characters are scared but are sticking together, and I think that's an act of love. So I guess I would say it's a love story, but definitely maybe like whatever genre you would put this year into, I would say is that film. Catherine, why do you think that exploding teens makes for a good romance film?
It's interesting because reading the book and then also reading the script, I think that's the surface level kind of description. But when you read it, there's a lot more. There's a lot more that kind of comes into play. I think what makes it a beautiful love story is the fact that it has these elements of reality put into it. Like a love story isn't necessarily beautiful from point A to point B. Sometimes love can happen out of necessity and out of two people needing each other. And I think the love that Mara and Dylan have for each other is one that's not just romantic, but it's also, again, like you said, it's also about a great friendship and being able to have someone to hold on to and be strong with and be strong for. But throughout the whole film, it's not just a love story in that sense. You also have the relationship and the love between you and your family, you and your parents, and then Mara and Tess, the best friendship, that kinship, which as a woman I really love to see, because I think having that best friend, it's such an inseparable bond. And when those relationships are put kind of at the feet of this big objective or this crazy thing that happens, it only strengthens or breaks those bonds, which is very interesting to see. What do you think makes Mara and Dylan's relationship different to things that we've seen before, maybe in like the teen romance sense, this being kind of different?
I mean, I think the thing that, and you mentioned the friendship thing, which I think is definitely there, but I think the thing that was most striking to me, especially at first, was the amount of self-awareness between the two and about the relationship that they had, which, there was kind of like a cynical kind of feel to the whole thing, even though, of course, they are falling in love with each other and, that's very real. But I think that was something that I really enjoyed quite a bit, that they're really, I mean, not saying that other teen romances, the characters aren't smart, but I think in this, they're just smart in a very specific kind of way that I really was attracted to off the page. But yeah, and then I also just think, in the midst of all that chaos as well that's going on around them, they manage to have a lot of fun with each other and laugh a lot. And you get to really see that in those type of love stories very often. You see the kind of the pain and the anguish and the trial and tribulation and the vulnerability and all that, but when they're just laughing about, the last names of these football players or whatever it is, and really just kind of having fun amongst themselves, I think those moments you rarely do get to see in those stories. Catherine, what drew you to the role of Mara specifically?
And I just remember it being very quirky and different. That's the first thing that struck me, is that it felt very satirical, and when someone explodes within the first minute or the first couple of pages, it just felt very unique and different. And then once I was hooked into that first moment, being able to experience the story and see that it wasn't all just gore or all just love or all just one thing or another, it was kind of this beautiful balance of turmoil with gore, with satire, with love, and these moments of levity. Thirdly, I'd say Mara, her journey and her as a character, she's like the most beautiful, lovable kind of chaos. She's like a puppy in the sense that it's just like everything she takes it in. She's like a firefly in a jar. But there's also, there's the playfulness to that, but then there's also the real kind of depth behind that. And I think that's what I found really beautiful, is that you realize when this thing starts to happen that she really puts up these facades, and it's not just for other people to make them feel okay, but at the end of the day, it's also for herself. And really hitting that core and having to learn this lesson of sometimes things in life happen for no reason.
Were there any similarities between you and Mara that you especially connected with when reading the script?
I think I resonated towards the playfulness, and especially at the beginning of the film, you know, when we see her, especially and with Tess, that friend who always wants to make the other person smile and wants to make other people happy. I think that feeling of wanting to spread like light and that kind of jovial quality that she has, I definitely feel like I have had moments like that. But also, I mean, I guess in a way, maybe this isn't specific to me, but maybe is something that we can all resonate with a little bit, is that response to what happens, that, you know, trying to kind of grapple with a situation that is scary and a situation that is uncertain. What do you do when you can't control anything that's happening? You know, the way that Mara deals with it, I mean, she goes on a bit of a spiral, and I think a lot of other people do as well when something happens. Also, at the end of the day, you know, she tries to be strong. She tries to be strong, to be strong, to be strong. So yeah, I feel like maybe especially in this context, even though we did this before the current climate was even, I mean, didn't exist. Like, this was complete satire. I feel like now maybe those moments people will be able to reflect on a little bit more, or maybe it will be a bit closer to home. So Mara calls Dylan nerdy, and some people might expect you to have played this kind of nerdy, very quiet, unspoken character, but then in the film, Dylan actually goes out and kind of gets what he wants, and he sort of rebuffs a bit of that stereotype. Why do you think that's refreshing? I
liked the idea that he's pretty open about, you know, this narrative that he had for himself going, in that, you know, he was going to just kind of keep to himself and wait until college, and that's when he was going to, you know, put himself out there more and invest in the life that he wanted. But then, you know, similar to our current circumstances in the world right now, this thing completely out of his control derails that narrative and derails that plan. And, you know, what he's left with is just, in his case, is this kind of newfound drive to go after the life that he wants. And part of that is, you know, reaching out to Mara and saying, I really have these feelings for you, and I want to, you know, kind of be with you. And I just think that, you know, I don't see that so often in a lot of characters, but I think especially when the character is someone who is kind of a more internal, passive person, that's pretty rare. So I really did enjoy getting to see that, and then getting to see where that actually takes him and the life that he's able to then have after that point. I really appreciated, and I think I really appreciated the message of, you know, when one actually does take that action and that initiative to go after the life they want, you know, how full their life can be because of that. So with that message of taking advantage of the present moment, what advice would you give, you know, young people around the world right now with that in mind?
Take advantage of your youth. We're also all being affected by what's happening very differently. And, you know, some people are experiencing different things, or probably yearning for different things. But especially as a young person, you know, I think the future and the idea of future is so important, because, you know, the future is your potential, it's your life, it's what to look forward to. And I think, you know, I'm still also a young person, so I'm still learning things about life and what to enjoy and what's good and all that kind of stuff. But I guess the piece of advice for all of us right now is that, you know, if you are feeling really restless, or you're feeling like you're unsure of how to deal with this moment, firstly, there's always people, and there are things that are there to help and support, but also the idea that, you know, some things happen for no reason, and that's what we cover in the film. You know, sometimes things in life will happen for no reason. People will die, accidents will happen, or there will be things in your life that just don't make sense, and it's hard to be okay with that, and you don't have to be okay with that. Make the most of your time in your life, whatever that is that you're doing, and, you know, I guess do whatever brings you joy, because at the end of the day, your life is your life, and it's there for you to do with it what you will and what you want.